Welcome to OpenGov TV. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the distinct pleasure of having Guna over here with me, who is the country manager for Red Hat of Singapore. We are going to be discussing open hybrid multi-cloud strategy for high performance organization. Now, Guna, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mohit. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. So Guna, now that we're going into hopefully the next phase of the pandemic under control, the true word hybrid is coming into play, right? Organizations, both public and private, are going to get their staff to start coming back into the office at least a few days every week. Now, that's what brings in the hybrid multi-cloud strategy. What do you think organizations should be focusing on?
Mohit, I think it's a very appropriate question, right? Especially with all of the lifting of the COVID restrictions, as you put it. Just like what is mirroring in life in terms of how people will go back to work, and there was a survey done, and majority of people would still prefer hybrid approach, being able to work from home and office as they see fit, whenever they want to see fit. Likewise, organizations also need to have the same ability to be able to leverage their technology, to be able to have it in a hybrid model, leveraging the public cloud for certain key things and putting things on premise where it sees fit. And the whole hybrid cloud is not about an end state. It's really about how an organization develops a capability for hybrid cloud. So the ability and the capability to be able to move solutions, their business from on-premise to cloud or any particular cloud as they see fit, right? They need to be able to have the flexibility to choose what they want to do. If it is a very sensitive data, for example, then putting it on premise because of maybe regulatory reasons, or leveraging some nice shiny toy on a public cloud, which is maybe an AI engine or something innovative, right? And being able to use it on a particular cloud or across multiple clouds. So that is the hybrid multi-cloud strategy, the flexibility to do your business the way you feel you should be running a business. So the core to all of this is like what people are going through. People have gone through a change in the last 2 years of working in a hybrid model. Likewise, the people change, the culture change, and even the process and technology. All right, all of that needs to go along with it to create a lasting change within the organization, right? To be successful. Otherwise, it's a challenge. So I don't think we'll ever get back to a different strategy. It will be hybrid, it will be multi-cloud moving forward.
It would be, and I think you're quite right in saying that. But let me ask you another question. Data is becoming more, right? The volume, the gravity of it is becoming so much more serious, to the extent where people are taking edge into play now, right? So that big old saying, don't bring data to do analytics, do the analytics right there on source, which is because of the IoT devices. Do you think edge computing would replace cloud?
I think it's a pendulum that will continue to swing. A lot of organizations that started moving towards central computing, if they really think back about it, in the 1780, it was central computing, just that it was not called cloud, it was called something else. As we start moving towards cloud and moving everything to a centralized cloud or multiple centralized clouds, what organizations have started to see is that the technology is now available to try and get data from very different spaces, right? And the term that everyone uses is data gravity. And a very interesting example, right? For lack of gravity, International Space Station. So how you have data coming from remote places, right? Whether it's an International Space Station, connected vehicles, factory floors, even a retail store somewhere down the line, or a trace together device at a shopping mall. All of that data that typically was coming in would either have gone into a traditional data center, or you would be trying to move all of that onto a cloud, a public cloud, for example. But that itself is a challenge, right? Is it possible for me to do my analytics or analyze all of that data at nearest to the edge, and therefore reduce the latency required, so I am able to act on it immediately? The last thing you want, for example, at a trace together or a gantry, for the data to go back to the public cloud, get analyzed, and come back in that 1 second or 2 seconds, something may have happened. Autonomous vehicle, you can't actually be doing a lot of the processing on public cloud where you have a latency of a second maybe. While it may not be relevant in all use cases, but a lot of edge applications are coming up because data is now coming from all kinds of strange, challenging and unlikely places. So at Red Hat, we see edge computing as an opportunity to extend on the open hybrid cloud. So yes, we talk about open hybrid cloud, and traditionally open hybrid cloud or multi-cloud is defined as public cloud and on-premise cloud working together. But now you have an opportunity to extend it such that edge comes in, right? And edge is never easy, but getting devices connected and generating this volume of data, and how do you actually bring this all back for your organization to be able to do analysis, AI, use that data to build your business or to change the way you run your business more efficiently, maybe. There are a lot of things that you could do from a use case perspective of bringing edge data in. It's not just about autonomous vehicle or international space station. Sometimes it's as simple as what you get from shop floors, factory floors, etc. Right? So all of that data and how you bring it in, or how, do you even need to bring it in? How do you manage it with that huge volume of data without always thinking of, I want to move all of this data onto a cloud, because it never makes economic sense, and neither will it make sense from a latency perspective, because it always takes seconds or milliseconds to move data, and therefore you don't want to do this because you want really real-time response. I mean, of course, at the same time, you also are really concerned about privacy and security, right? Privacy and security have never been more urgent. Now that you're collecting data at all points of interaction, so you really want to be concerned about, in terms of data, the privacy and security rules that you put in place for it as well. So it is really critical in terms of how you plan for it, but you really need to look at edge computing, the data at the edge, and the analysis either at the edge or at the public cloud. And at the same time, how do you ensure privacy and security across your whole pipeline?
No, I understand and I get that. But then you hit on a certain word, so I want to expand on that a little bit more, please. Security. The fact that you have a hybrid multi-cloud strategy, that means you got lots of openings. How do organizations make sure, because that's the biggest stumbling block right now, right? When we talk about security. So what's your take on, what should they be looking for and looking out to ensure that there was no security risk?
Right. I mean, I agree with you, right? The more options that you have and you happen to use, the more likely that you have that one of the links will break. But the foundation behind having privacy and security in a hybrid multi-cloud is people. So when you do have, like you said, when you have multiple clouds, you do need your people trained in each security platform or each public cloud provider or each private cloud provider, and work with them into how to secure that piece. By the same time, tools and technology are there for you to be able to automate a lot of this mundane tasks in terms of how to secure a public cloud platform or a private cloud platform. And at the same time, you also need to look at how do you actually now implement new policies, right? And rules, for example, how you develop an application, how do you actually deploy an application, and how do you actually trust your application? So there are a lot of rules that you need to put in place, or policies that you need to put in place to be able to govern a hybrid multi-cloud. But is it more challenging? Yes. But is it easy, or can it be automated? Yes, as well. So if by leveraging the right tools and platform, you can actually establish a common policy, right, across all of the multi-clouds, then it becomes very easy for your developer to develop an application for public cloud provider A or public cloud provider B. At the same time, to secure the application, manage the network, because you're going to automate all of the rules behind it, and at the same time, you're going to have a consistent policy that neither your developers, neither your system administrators, system managers can violate, right? So you can actually put all of those policies in place that will get enforced automatically. And if something does get breached, you are aware of it, you're notified, and you know what to do about it. So it is important to go down that hybrid multi-cloud, like you said at the beginning, around innovation and the flexibility and the agility that the organization requires. But at the same time, to be able to get privacy and governance rules and policies put in place is actually very easy, where if you are leveraging open hybrid platform, because the technology is open.
I hear you. So let's now go down that word open, because you used it a few times, right? So we also have what's called an open hybrid cloud that Red Hat offers. Is that you feel a better platform than the others that are not open in architecture?
So as you know, any Red Hat conversation that doesn't have the word open, it's not a Red Hat conversation. We built our business on being open, and it really makes a significant difference, right? Because if you're building a platform for your digital business, for your hybrid cloud, built on a single vendor's technology, that's not open. Open, it comes in both angles, right? Open as in being able to work and connect with other providers, which is sometimes a simpler problem or task at hand. But if you look at open as an open source and being able to go to multi-vendors, it's actually as important, right? So the whole world has gone through central distributed. Every one of those big, massive shifts has always been because a vendor became so big and it started holding either a business or the industry to ransom, which kind of forced people to move away from the mainframe world to a distributed world, and then from a distributed world back to a central world, right? Or of cloud. It's all about, do I want to be open? Do I want to be able to be flexible in my choices? And do I want to have the ability not to be held ransom? So when we look at it, Red Hat, we work on open source technologies, be it Red Hat Linux, or we talk about OpenShift and Kubernetes, or we talk about Ansible for automation. Everything that we do is about open source. Therefore, it's not about how open source stops you or helps you from being locked in. Open source drives the innovation that actually currently all of the public cloud providers are built on. But every one of them is implementing open source in a particular way that potentially is not open. While you could interface across multiple clouds, but it becomes a lot more challenging environment versus working with someone like Red Hat, where with our ecosystem, we've actually built that common layer, built on Red Hat Linux, a platform that customers trust and work on, to be able to create a technology or a platform that allows customers to actually move applications beyond a single platform. And from a development perspective, things like OpenShift actually helps customers develop cloud-native applications, regardless of where you want to deploy it. Whether you're deploying on-premise or whether you're deploying on a public cloud provider A or B or C, it doesn't matter. Because the common development platform also makes it easier for you to train your people. And like what we talked about earlier, secure your platform, because there'll be a common security platform that actually helps you manage the whole DevSecOps platform. So yes, best of breed is great, but best of breed solutions can be implemented in an open hybrid multi-cloud. So regardless of what technology you're planning to use or what new open source platform you want to tools or projects you want to leverage, great. But open hybrid multi-cloud allows you to orchestrate all of these workloads and use automation to drive your business across the multiple clouds without having to be constrained to working with a single provider or being held ransom by someone at some point in time.
No, fair enough. And you use the word ransom, so I'm gonna trigger myself on that and saying, you know, what's going on around the world with the war taking place right now, and the U.S. being on one side, the big superpowers right now, U.S. one side, China the other, are the only two countries that are providing cloud to the rest of the world. Okay, how do you think big enterprises should be navigating, okay, in these troubled times?
So you brought up a very interesting point, right? We're all seeing it in real time, what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. It is a political situation, but that's the challenge, right? When politics and technology go together, then we do have a serious problem. It's not just about a technology vendor, but now there's a whole dimension of politics. Everyone always says power corrupts. So whenever there's a single dominant player, it always corrupts the whole system because it forces everyone to work in a particular way. We've seen a huge ecosystem around the American cloud providers. We've seen a large ecosystem building up in China with the China providers. Singapore being literally the melting pot or the trading middle ground, right? So we've got all of them, and we have no lack of choice between a cloud provider from China or a cloud provider from the US. So this is one of the things we actually have the luxury of having both of them. And on top of it, we do also have local providers who set up their own private clouds as well, right? So organizations like NCS, ST, NTT, Fujitsu, all of them also have set up private clouds and offering the same benefits that a China cloud provider or a US cloud provider provide as well. Organizations that have also implemented their own private cloud, like the large banks in Singapore, have set up their own server farms and set up their own private clouds as well. But the challenge here is that being open hybrid multi-cloud means that I can run my platform regardless of whatever the political situation is. So regardless of what US decides to do, whether it's from a data security perspective or like what they're doing, turning off the tax, etc. Whatever happens from a legal or political perspective with a US cloud provider, or vice versa, if something happens with a Chinese cloud provider in terms of what Chinese government regulations address our data or any one of those controls, being a tool on a platform like redhat, we run on the Chinese cloud providers and we run on the American cloud providers, gives you the flexibility, right, to be able to move your workload. If you feel that you are uncomfortable, whether it's because you held ransom or you feel that you found something on the Chinese cloud provider that's actually a lot more attractive, you can actually move your workload easily, right? We're talking about minutes and hours to move a workload from an American cloud provider to a Chinese cloud provider, or vice versa, or if need be, move those workloads back on premise with your own cloud or a local cloud provider. So you actually have the flexibility, and this is not just a requirement for governments, right? So governments are always talking about, from sovereign cloud, I need to be able to have control over my data, and I need to be able to ensure that I can run regardless of what geopolitical situation is. I mean, there's no reason why anybody would agree or accept or giving government agencies 6 months to move the data from one cloud provider to the other cloud provider because, let's say, event like Ukraine and Russia happened. No one will accept it, right? So as such, to have the portability of the data, to be able to move across both of the ecosystems, and in fact, take advantage of the innovation that happens in China around AI, ML, that they are leveraging with the other innovations that are happening on the American cloud providers, and being able to take the best of both worlds is something about open hybrid cloud, right? And this is what redhat always talks about: being open, being hybrid, and being multi-cloud.
Now, Gunnar, thank you for that. Being open, being hybrid, being multi gives organizations the flexibility. And this day and age where there's so much of the unknown coming our way, I think it's only fair that people really embrace this, right? And make sure that they have a plan, a strategy behind this. Okay, Gunnar, thank you very much for your time. This is highly, highly informative.
Thanks, Mohit. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Gunnar.
Thanks.
Thanks.